with the gospel, to be a missionary wherever you are, in your neighborhood, school, work, etc.
Hello again. It is a real privilege for me to speak to new member classes because it was a new member class some 30 years ago at another church that was instrumental in my salvation. I grew up in a Christian family, or at least a church-going family. I like to say that I went to church as a boy whenever the Spirit moved me. The Spirit's name was Dad, and he moved me every Sunday morning. We went to church until the day I went to college, and then I didn't go again until I was in my 30s. Well, along the way, things happen in life, and my wife and I began going to church again, and we in fact joined a couple of churches. Nobody asked me if I believed anything or told me what I was supposed to believe. We just joined the churches. Then we went to another church that took membership seriously, like this one does. And I found out that I was going to have to be interviewed by two elders, like we do here. Was told that the main purpose of that interview was to discern whether I had a credible testimony of faith or not. Well, I wasn't even sure what that meant, but I knew I didn't have one. And so I dropped out of the class, and a couple of weeks later, the church secretary called and asked if we would be ready to schedule our interviews, and I said, no, we weren't going to do it. And she said, is there a problem? I said, no, there's no problem. And she said, would you like for me to have the pastor call you? And I said, no, I wouldn't like for you to have the pastor call me. And so the next day the phone rang, and it was the pastor. And he invited us to lunch. My wife and I went to lunch. We spent an hour telling the pastor everything we didn't like about him and his church. He was very gracious, thank God, and then asked if we would be willing to join him and his wife in a small group to study the book of Romans. And my thought to that was I didn't even want to go to an interview, much less participate in a small group. But by the time we got back to my office, my wife informed me that we would be joining that small group, and thank God that we did. Over the course of the next year, thanks to that group, thanks to the scriptures, I began to understand that the Bible was true. I read everything I could get my hands on, Josh McDowell stuff, R.C. Sproul stuff, the Bible, you name it, I was reading it. And within a year, I was convinced that the Bible is true, that God is who he says he is, and that Jesus is who he said he is. Then it only took me another year to bend the knee, as they say. Why is that? Because I knew that once I surrendered, that changed everything, and it did. But there came the point on Monday, Thursday, 1989, where I did bend the knee and surrendered my life to Christ. What does that have to do with the new member class? Well, if they hadn't had a program of teaching what we believe, and then having the interviews, and me knowing I had to sit in front of somebody, it made me realize that I had never decided whether Christianity was true or not. I know in all those years that I was going to church that the gospel was preached many times. I never heard it. And I doubt that it was the fault of the churches. So thanks to that new member class, I was forced to decide whether Christianity was true or not. And once I did, I had no choice but to surrender my life to Christ. If you are in this class and you're not certain of your faith, if you haven't made that decision, if you can't look someone in the eye and say that you know that God raised Christ from the dead and that he is Lord of all, then you need to not join the church. You need to talk to somebody about faith. You need to decide. So you certainly have your campus pastor, you have elders, you have friends who are believers. If you're not sure, don't let this opportunity go by. Please talk to somebody. Thank you.
All of the elders are praying for you as you engage with Trinity Church and take this step towards membership. Thank you for your time and for your interest in Trinity, and may the Lord be with you.